Columbine, 1999. Two high school seniors stormed their school, killing 12 people and injuring 20 in the process before turning the guns on themselves. Sandy Hook, 2012. A lone gunman storms an elementary school, killing 26 children and teachers after killing his own mother. Parkland, 2018. A former high school student storms his school and guns down fellow classmates, killing 17 and injuring 17 in the process. You have heard the many stories about the victims, but how many of you actually remember them? You probably know more about the shooters themselves. Why? Because the media loves a good, misunderstood gunman gone rogue. Every time there is a mass shooting, the news media obsesses over the shooter and their backstory, giving them fame in the wrong way. The victims get noted, but don't get the same background story as the shooters, and they might be inspiring potential shooters unknowingly. I've read about some of the deadliest mass shootings, and I've seen firsthand the media's obsession. It's sickening to think that they can use the shooter to gain sympathy and boost ratings. What I hope to accomplish with you today is gain a better understanding of the media's obsession, how to combat that obsession, and explaining how you can limit the voice of the shooter. I know most of you remember Parkland, the media attention it garnered with gun control and shooter Nicholas Cruz. Why is the media obsessed? Why shooters? The media picks and chooses how much coverage shooters get and for how long. According to an article from Undark, shootings at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, has received an enormous amount of media coverage so far because it took place in a school and involved a younger shooter. Shooting by young perpetrators are more likely to receive coverage than those by older perpetrators. The Virginia Tech mass shooting received international coverage in which a gunman, a student, went into a classroom and opened fire, killing 32 people and injuring 17. The media spent more time on the gunman, who was of South Korean descent, and his motives in the victims. Notice how quickly the shooting in El Paso lasted on the news? Probably don't. Because minus people using it to back their anti-immigrant agenda, it didn't gain the views that the news wanted. To keep attention, every shooting is given the deadliest mass shooting in history. This is a tactic that has been constantly used over and over. In 2018, a Virginia Tech student was arrested for trying to buy 5,000 rounds of ammunition. He was found to have an assault rifle, was researching bulletproof vests, and bought a cop car, which leads me into my next point. The portrayal of shooters has inspired copycats, websites, and cults dedicated to the murderers. The perfect example is the Columbine shooters, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. The media obsessed over these boys, as they tried to spin it off as they were bullied or they were misunderstood, both of which were lies. Eric was a psychopath, and Dylan was just depressed, who had fallen under the influence of Harris. After Columbine, they became matriarchs. Eric's journal, when it was found, was posted online for everybody to read. They were posted on the internet and news after they were found and have been an inspiration to sociopaths. A quote from the News Daily website shows the deep, sick obsession had. Before his knife assault on a Pennsylvania school in 2014, Alex Rabel wrote, "I became a prophet because I spread the word of a God, Eric Harris." Dylan Roof is another example of the media's obsession. A proclaimed white supremacist, he went into a church and killed 9 innocent people. He too has a cult following. His crime has inspired fellow white supremacists. According to the ADL website, one commenter on the site described Roof in 2017 as an intelligent, self-respected, insane white man who was inspired by the dystopian and clearly anti-white animus that's now penetrating the world. The news media knows the shooters will constantly bring the views. The purpose of most articles is to inform and give victims light. But the media wants the background, the story where they bullied, so the victims have maybe 1 or 2 articles dedicated to them, and maybe some airtime, and then the shooters can get weeks to months of attention based on how much carnage. According to Dave Cullen on News Republic, beware of primary sources, motives, killer's friends, multiple sources, second shooters, and remember, everyone gets it wrong, even the governor. Every article is filled with unnecessary information about the shooter's upbringing. Like their favorite food, their parents, like, oh, I can't believe my kid did that bowl. Masses will eat it up. They just want to know what happened. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, what can we do? How can we prevent future copycats? Everyone uses social media from Facebook to Twitter. And it's a very simple way to push back. Using the hashtag #NoNotoriety. Post it in the comments under an article of a shooting or possible backstory on the murderer. Pressure them not to release the killer's name. Ask them to only focus on the victims. Not only does it take away from the killer, it also helps in lifting the stigma on mental health. The news likes to label every single shooter as mentally ill when they have not been clinically diagnosed themselves. Every hashtag, comment, letter sent to the press helps in shifting the perspective off the shooters to deprive them of the fame they seek. But what can a hashtag do? It's not going to do anything. A simple hashtag can do a lot. Pressuring the media to only focus on the victims, not give the shooter notoriety, helps decrease the chance of the next attack. The recent school shooting in California, police and news withheld the shooter's name at the time. We need to explain to the press that they do not need to give the shooter attention because there is no purpose in giving him the airtime they probably wanted. Every mass shooting, the media focuses on the greater likelihood another will occur soon, called the contagion effect. According to a study on PLOS ONE, subsequently increased the incidence of similar events due to the coverage, planting the seeds of ideation in at-risk individuals to commit similar acts. Significant evidence of contagion in school shootings, for which an incident is contagious for up to 13 days, and incites an average of at least 0.22 new incidents. The more limited coverage on the shooter and his motives, the better chances of fewer copycats. Now that you understand the obsession and damage the news does, how to combat. Think about the impact it could have on future events. Think of your friend sharing a news article that delves into the life of the shooter. You can explain to her that what she's doing is promoting the shooter's life, she's giving him fame. Ask her to delete it. Ask her to go to the press and ask them to delete it. Imagine a decrease in copycat attacks, a decrease in inspiration for potential killers. Using the hashtag, even for events that happened years ago, can decrease the voice of the shooter to none. The world is a crazy place. We love a good story, and we need to not be obsessed with the killer's life. Every day, there is a new mass shooting, whether it be a school or a mall, inspired by infamy. The media needs to stop its toxic obsession on the shooters and give victims and heroes the spotlight. 5,100 articles have been written for Virginia Tech. 53,000 articles about Columbine, in referencing or talking about the incident, the manifestos, the journals, online. Why? The news wants to spin a new light on them. Next time, ask them to refrain from saying the name of the shooter. Pressure them to focus on the victims and the heroes. Persuade them to not give the shooter his 15 minutes. The news thinks that the push is a shift of blame onto them. They don't understand the damage that what they write can be ammunition for someone else. We can spread facts without motives and backstories. We can give news on shootings, but leave their name out. Mention it only once, if need be. Prevent others from getting ideas, and we can do it with 2 words: no notoriety.